Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at the Tamashii Nation's movie realization Star Wars YARIASHIGARU Stormtrooper, which is basically a Stormtrooper with a spear and a flag on his back, as opposed to the other ones which have had guns and bows and all kinds of different things like that. And you can't really see the flag, and that's something we're going to talk about, but it is on there. You can see, there you go, he's got a big flag on his back. So it's basically the same as all the other ones we've seen, but it does have some unique features, and I kind of like it. So let's go ahead and get it off the stand and take a closer look. And this guy stands just about 18 centimeters, which makes him just about, just over 7 inches. So yep, these are bigger scale, and they do have a lot of detail. They're very nice. Like I said, it's almost the same figure as most of the other ones we've seen. I'm not going to spend a ton of time going over all of the same stuff. You can see we still have a really nice intricate sculpt work. We have a nice sculpt work. That's great English. We have some really nice sculpt work. We have a nice paint job, and it's mostly uniform. Some of them we've seen where the paints are kind of like, ooh, they're shading here, but not anywhere else. This one's fairly uniform. The black wash type effect on the boots and gauntlets, very nicely done. The little X's of stitching throughout the armor, that's all really nicely done. You can see the Imperial logo right here. I guess that's what you would call that. That's very clean. The face is very clean. I'm overall just very pleased with it. It looks very, very nice. You know, we've had a few that didn't quite have that, and this is good. And another thing that really stands out about this guy, and maybe this was a thing and maybe I just don't remember it, but he's very nice and matte or flat finished. He doesn't have gloss on him, which makes him look so much nicer. It's a very nice quality paint job. Very nice finish indeed. As far as accessories go, we have three different sets of hands. We have the two fist hands that come on him in the package, two gripping hands that are kind of like a more straight closed grip, and then another set of gripping hands that are more angled and a little bit more loose. We do have his sword and scabbard, very nicely sculpted, nicely painted, and of course you can put that on his belt. We also have a little peg thingy that goes into his back, which is for holding his banner or his flag. And that is a very nicely detailed accessory. You can see the logo again, perfectly crisp and clean. The paintwork for where the cloth meets the metal is very nicely done. And then we have the little X's on there for stitching. Very, very well executed. And this just slides into the thing that goes on his back. And then that's that. However, and this isn't necessarily inaccurate historically speaking. You would want it to be a fairly tall thing so they could be seen on the battlefield. I'm not sure it should be quite that tall though, because that's very tall. And even if it isn't historically accurate to make it shorter, I'm thinking that might have been a better option. Just because it's so far and away from the figure, it's going to make for an odd display, I think. Unless you have like a giant battlefield type display, then it would look cool. But otherwise, it's just a little bit awkward. Not a problem, but a little bit awkward. And then the last accessory we have is his giant spear, which is very nicely detailed. It comes in two parts to make it easier to put in his hand. And the paint and sculpt is very nice, and it is very, very large in relation to the figure, much like the banner, the flag. It's very, very tall. Very long, that's what she said. It's very nice, though, so that's good. Decent accessories. As far as the articulation goes on this guy, it is basically the exact same we've seen before. We have some ball pegs for the neck and the head, and it moves around fairly well considering he's got all this armor going on. Little hinge for the neck piece. These guys back here are somewhat flexible, though you don't really need to because they don't get in the way too much. There is a big ball peg for the arm to connect to the body with a little bit of a cup in there that kind of is supposed to hide it, but it doesn't seem to really want to move too much. We have our ball hinge for the shoulder, which works very nicely. You get tons of range. And then connected to that ball hinge is a ball peg for the shoulder pad, which will just keep it moving around and out of the way. You do have your bicep swivel up here. It's very stiff, but it does work just like a traditional bicep swivel. Double jointed elbow. Again, it's a little stiff, but you get decent range out of it. Better than 90 degrees, so that's good. You have a swivel and a hinge for the wrist, and then at the end of that is a ball peg, but it's essentially just a swivel. Decent range for the wrists, though. For the torso, it's your standard, it's technically a hinged ball peg, but it works mostly like just a ball peg. And for some reason on this guy, at least on mine, it pops off very easily. So be a little bit careful with that, but otherwise you're going to have just the range of a ball peg, which gives you mostly a swivel with a little bit of leaning forward and back and side to side, but not a whole lot. Lots of these guys are on separate pieces or are just very flexible, except for this underlayer, which is connected to the thigh. These guys won't get in the way, but that will. This guy, of course, swivels for the sword. And the hips are on ball pegs with basically your standard ball peg socket. I'm not sure how much you can see in there. So you can bring the legs out to the side about that far, which should be more than enough. Going forward, it's a lot more limited just because it's so cumbersome and clunky with all these extra pieces. Even though they're loose and flexible, they're going to get in the way. So not the best posability going forward and back, but it's probably enough once again. You do get a thigh swivel in there. Not a ton of range, but definitely some. And then for the knees, you have a double jointed knee. Not the best looking knee. You do get some rotation out of that if that's helpful to you at both ends, but not much. It'll do. It'll do. These guys definitely look great once they're posed, but the articulation is relatively minimal and not necessarily the best looking if you look right at it. But as you can see, they're going to look really cool once they're posed, so that's good. And then for the ankle, it's a full-on ball hinge, which doesn't get better than that. It's not the best range in the world on this particular one because there's almost plastic covering the entire thing, but it's the best kind of ankle joint you can have, and it's on there, so that's good. And it's just a really cool looking figure. It's one of my favorites, I think. I like this particular combination of details. It's very nicely executed, and it just is a good design. So I really like this one, guys. I think you might too. Of course, the spear's a little bit less interesting than some of the other ones, but I'm very pleased with it, especially in the execution. I like it a whole bunch. I think you guys will. So there it is, guys. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I have new videos up almost every single day. Talk about action figures, movies, TV shows, video games, all kinds of fun stuff. So make sure you come back for that. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it. And in the meantime, keep collecting.